What's happening, everybody? You're all very welcome to the weekly Armchair Sports Talk YouTube channel. This is the Talk of the League podcast, and as you can see, stacked panel today. 2 Chelsea fans, a Spurs fan, and unfortunately, a United fan. But we're going to have to just deal with that, lads. And Stu, you're my brother in arms this week. We're bottom of the table to get a man relegation zone, and we're going to have to just deal with that. But listen, guys, I'm going to go through there. Sean, introduce yourself, who you follow, and where you are on YouTube and all that. Go ahead.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Matt. So, obviously you can see my handle underneath. You can follow me on Twitter there. And that's where I mostly interact with people in terms of football. And, kind of making my return tonight, I suppose. I've been absent from the weekly armchair for a while now. I've been flat out with stuff. But, first night back tonight now, and I'm looking forward to doing the show.
Good man, Sean. Stu, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. It's been a while. You can see me... my Twitter handle below. That's where you can come and abuse me, because that's what I've been getting the last couple of days. But I don't mind. It's all good banter. Big Man United fan, and I say it how it is, whether you like it or not. That's what I do. So
good man, Steve. Steve, walk away, Steve.
That's me there. You find me Twitter or Instagram, nothing like that. Same handle everywhere. Been a while as well since I was on here. So looking forward to having a good chat. I said to Keem when I was invited on that if we lost Chelsea, I wouldn't be seen for a few days.
And Evan, walk away.
Oh, what's the crack, lads? Handles down there: Twitter, Instagram, TikTok is probably the main one you'd find me on, and Chelsea man through and through.
Good man, Evan. We're already flying off here. Looks like Kane's getting stuck into it already. So big up Brentford still. And Ed, who's the Wolves fan in the comments, big up the panel. Fair play to you, Ed. Right, lads. Fly through these results really quickly because we've a lot to talk about. Packed panel, as I said. We'll try and keep it within the hour as well. Aston Villa kicked off the weekend with a win against my team, Everton. Chat a little bit about that later on. Arsenal continued a very, very good start to the season with a 4-2 win. Gabriel Jesus coming in clutch for the fancy players as well. With that one, starting to start yet again for Leicester. I think they're going to really, really struggle this season as well, as if they lose the likes of Fofana as well. Brighton 0, Newcastle 0. Wasn't really surprised about that. Kind of thought that was the way that match was going to go. Man City 4-0 against Bournemouth. Southampton 2, Leeds 2. Leeds threw that game away. That would have been a huge 3 points for them, and they conceded 2 goals in the last few minutes. Wolves 0, Fulham 0. Don't know how there wasn't 2 red cards in that game with Morgan Gibbs-White and Mitrovic basically headbutting each other for 15 minutes. But Nunez got sent off last night. But listen, we'll talk about that again later on. The big one. Brentford 4, Manchester United 0 to round off our Saturday evening delight. Sunday 2 games. There was Nottingham Forest had a 1-0 win against West Ham. I watched this game, super game of football, but my God, how lucky were Nottingham Forest. Nottingham Forest was so lucky. West Ham had a disallowed goal, missed penalty, the crossbar twice and hitting the line twice. But they hung on for
keeper Forest have as well.
Yeah, exactly. But it looks like Henderson could be doing a bit of a job at United. But listen, he's a bit of an ego there as well, I think. But he done well in that game, in fairness to him. But I think he was a bit lucky as well, because the time the ball hit the crossbar twice, he was literally rooted to his feet and he couldn't do anything about either of them. So on another day, West Ham could have won that game handy, but Nottingham Forest got the 3 points. So fair play to them. Then what was an unbelievable game as well, really was a super Sunday, which was Chelsea 2, Spurs 2. We're going to get touch into that now as well. Then obviously we had last night's game, Crystal Palace Liverpool 1-1 in what was a bit of a dramatic game, especially in the second half. But listen, while we have you on, guys, let's get stuck into this Chelsea and Spurs game. Sean, I'll come to you about this one first. Wild game. I think, I'll give my little bit of opinion on it first. In my opinion, I think Chelsea were a little bit robbed. I know Steve won't want to hear that, but numerous things you probably touch on yourself. Obviously, I'll let you take the floor on that, but I think they were a little bit robbed. Great game of football. I think we need to kind of talk about the added time in games now as well. I mean, since the start of the new season, every time we come to the end of the game, there's 7, 8, 9 minutes getting added on, and it's because of these water breaks as well over the weekend. Why don't you just stop the clock? But anyway, I digress. Sean, get stuck into this game for me, will you?
Yeah, no, I will indeed. Kind of sick of being a Steve's ear over the weekend, and like he's coming up with all these. He have his few clips where like James could have been sent off as well and stuff. So yeah, no, I'm tired of talking about all that now. But yeah, like the first goal, like I don't feel as hard done by the first one because look, I think it was a foul on Havertz, but it's up the other end of the field. We still let Spurs go up. Jorginho should have cleared the ball before they scored. I don't have a problem with Richarlison's position either for that goal. But I do think it should have stood, but I don't feel it's hard done because like I said, it went up the field. It's the second goal which infuriated me. Like even if people didn't think it was a red card or violent conduct in VAR, that's fair. But like it was right in front of Anthony Taylor first time round. Thought we would have got a free out off of that. Obviously, I've spoken to Steve today in the group just about how like the following corner, how bad the marking like Chelsea switched off for it. There's no excuses for that either. But like you kind of touched on yourself there, I do think that decision was ridiculous and yeah, just absolutely robbed there. But like kind of decisions aside, I suppose one thing that I will take from it, like I'm very optimistic after seeing that because like you would have seen yourself, I suppose, over the summer, like a lot of the media writing Chelsea off, kind of having them down in 5th to 6th places in predictions and thinking that this is the year that they're gonna fall and they're gonna stumble. But kind of I was happy with the signings over the summer, and I thought we were gonna do really well this year. But it's just from seeing that game, like I all summer I've been tipping like the Spurs to finish second. I think they'll come closest to City and Liverpool. I was thinking it all summer. Very good side. Conte obviously is a brilliant manager, but seeing how Chelsea played against Spurs at the weekend, like just fills me with optimism. And I know we've obviously 2 or 3 more players to come in, whoever they are. We might speak more on 1 or 2 of them later on. But yeah, it's my main takeaway from the game. Like Sunday and yesterday, I was kind of, I think I was going over the top. I just kept on about the referee mistakes and how we were robbed out of the game. But I'm kind of over that now and just going to be optimistic going forward and going into the next few games now. I think it's a good platform to Chelsea to bounce off of and build from here. We have a nice few fixtures coming up, so if we can get a few wins together there, we're looking good.
Exactly. It's just like you say, it was a bit of an accumulation of errors, in my opinion. Like you say, if it wasn't a red card, surely it was at least a free out.
Yeah.
You've seen referees give free outs for people just pushing each other in the box, people falling over each other. If he wasn't going to even book him or send him off for the violent conduct, just give a free out. Anthony Taylor isn't doing himself any favours really by standing in front of that, seeing that VAR not saying to him, listen, there's a bit of a VAR review here. Even if the goal was scored, they probably could have went back to it, but I'm sure Steve will probably have his own opinion on that as well. Before I come to Steve, Evan, I'm going to give yourself as well a bit of a chance to kind of talk about this game before we move over to the Spurs side of it. What did you make of the game yourself?
Yeah, no, like normally back in the past I'd be like, it's only Spurs, 3 points handy. But looking at the transfer window that I was optimistic. I said 2-1 Chelsea win, and I was coming up to that until I absolutely jinxed it in the group chat and said Harry Kane was finished, game is over, 2-1 win. And for 95 minutes and 59 seconds, the man done nothing, only threw his head at a ball. But like as Sean said, the first goal, I think it was obstructing the keeper, shouldn't have been given. But like at the end of the day, you can argue that all you want, but it's the second goal. Like Sean said, the heads dropped. Defending in the box was a bit all over the place. Chelsea thought, yeah, they had it won, sure, clear the corner. But man that stood out to me was Ruben Loftus-Cheek. I think played out of his skin. James played out of his skin as per usual. He's the best in England by far. Jorginho, bit sloppy. I think the start of the game was a bit touch and go for Spurs. When they did have the ball, bit sloppy again. I think Chelsea passing was exceptional. The players were done well. But apart from that, it's just that corner. It just haunts me. After a while, I was talking so much shit in the group chat about it.
It's the added time. It's the added time because if they hadn't, I don't understand why they're adding 2 minutes on for the water break. Surely you just stop the clock and then they start it again or whatever. Like it's just mental that they're doing 2 minutes for the water break.
Yeah, I see your point. I know the water break is needed because by God that heat and
Oh yeah,
them
100%.
players playing
It's
at that
needed.
pace,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
it's needed. But it's there's an argument there. Just keep the clock going and add it on at the end. But like you said, it'd probably be more sense just stop the clock and restart it once play resumes.
Yeah, I
But
think they're gonna have to look into it because they're saying I think a stat came out over the weekend for the first game week. The ball was only in play for 55 minutes out of the total 90, and like at the end of the day, you're seeing less than an hour of actual football over the 245 minutes. So it's not great at the moment. The only thing I'll take away from Chelsea's performance myself after watching them the week before against Everton was they vastly improved in the attacking areas. I was worried for Chelsea coming into this game, and I actually thought Spurs probably would have done you over, only for the fact that it was at Stamford Bridge. Um, that Chelsea looked against Everton like they had nothing going forward. Now, I don't know if that was Everton were solid defensively, or just Chelsea ran out of ideas. Now, like you say, there's 2 weeks left of the transfer window. I do think they're going to have to bring somebody in going forward, if not a creative midfielder, to kind of bring in the likes of Raheem Sterling, Kai Havertz, and stuff like that. But the one thing I think Chelsea might struggle doing this year is breaking the teams down like the Evertons. Not necessarily against the likes of Spurs who are going to bring it to you, but the teams who play the low block against you might struggle to break them down. That's the only issue that I'm going to have with Chelsea. So let Steve have his moment on the match as well. Steve, how do you think the game went? Do you think Spurs kind of robbed a point at the end of it, or do you think they deserved the point?
So, like, I definitely see any Chelsea fan's point of view on it to say like, while they can feel aggrieved, I won't feel any sympathy towards them for it because, like, going back over the years, Spurs and Chelsea, like Spurs fans will tell you, it's a cursed fixture for us. I mean, like even last year when Kane scored that goal, like was disallowed because like the touch on Silva like threw himself to the ground. Like that was Silva using his experience and like at the time like when Lampard got that goal that never crossed the line. Joe, there was an FA Cup semi-final, another goal that didn't cross the line. So there's all those things that happened over the years that like it was like a totting up thing that I didn't feel kind of too sorry for the Chelsea players or fans about. But I would agree that Anthony Taylor absolutely should be seeing that hair pull and he should have given the free out. If you talk about added time, you could say, well, if Mendy wasn't booked for time wasting after 60 minutes, perhaps that much time might have been added on. Same way, like the man that scored the second goal for Chelsea shouldn't have been on the pitch at the time. Like again, that's another, and that was right in front. Like if you look at the clip of that again, Anthony Taylor was a couple of meters away from it. He should be seeing that. He booked Reece James for literally the identical thing. Only difference being is that the first one was while Son was running when the ball was in play. But like Spurs fans will write off Chelsea at Stamford Bridge before any fixture list is ever released. That's a game we're getting 0 points out of. We just always collapse there. I think, like you said, Matt, looking at the Everton Chelsea game, Chelsea looked very flat, uncharacteristically flat. I believe the performance on Sunday, a lot of it was to do with the home crowd. The atmosphere there looked absolutely unbelievable. You know, Chelsea fans are always fired up for Spurs at home, and I think the Chelsea players kind of like were buoyed by that as well. I think Raheem Sterling is going to be one of the signings of the season. I still do. I think that's an incredibly shrewd deal from Chelsea. But on the Spurs side of things, like it was good to see that we weren't just a pushover. Like we played Chelsea 3 times in 12 days last season, and like we just capitulated. We had nothing about us. After the first goal, like yes, fair enough. You look at the stats and see Chelsea had an awful lot of possession. Like Spurs had the more big chances. We give Mendy probably more to do. But it was just nice to see that we weren't a soft touch, and I think that's like what a lot of the other clubs will probably see now is that kind of the players are buying into that Conte mentality and just like running through brick walls from Evan Shaw, you'll know yourselves that all too well as well. And then what impressed me, I think, the most about Conte on Sunday versus the games last season is that he reacted at halftime. If you remember, Sean or Evan, last year, was it he brought on Jorginho at halftime in one of the games, or was it Kovacic?
Yeah, no, it was Jorginho. Yeah,
Jorginho, yeah, he brought him on at halftime and just changed everything. You know, it just that changed everything in that game, and I think we went pretty much 4-2-4 in the second half. Brought on Richarlison. What he did was, like you said, like Evan Kane didn't do a single thing for the whole game, but that was down to how Tuchel had your defense playing, and like he just couldn't get a sniff because like there was one of your centre backs literally 2 feet away from him at any point. He wasn't able to do anything. He was smothered. And when Richarlison came on, it gave the Chelsea defence another player to kind of have to think about. And then what he was doing was kind of creating space. And I think ultimately that led to a couple of the chances for us. But yeah, like Matt, the Richarlison thing, like I get it. Like Everton fans, like I said, to say like how like he didn't be endeared and all that. Like I mean, like he played one half of football for us in the Premier League, and like I see it in him already. Like he chased down every lost cause that was there. He tried to. All he wanted to do was go forwards. So I really liked that.
He's a typical Conte player, isn't he? He's a typical Conte player. Just literally, he might look like he's running around like a headless chicken half time. What he's doing is he's pressing defenders and he's putting them under pressure, especially in the last 10 minutes in a game like that.
I think he wants to make his mark, like, do you know what I mean? Coming up and taking a step up to a bigger team, like he wants to leave an impression on Conte and show that he's willing to work.
He did that when he came from Watford to Everton, and feel like he kind of proved his point to the level he could at Everton. And I think now he wants to come into Spurs and say, okay, well, this is the next stage for him. He wants to do it. I can't wait to see him in the Champions League. I think him in the Champions League is like that whole like dream come true thing for like the Brazilians, and I think he'll shine there. But I just the biggest takeaway for me from Sunday was Spurs not being pushovers, not being that soft touch.
Absolutely, I think it's actually I think it's a great point because I actually think a lot of the other big teams are going to struggle against Chelsea. It's just purely because of Tuchel. Like, I think tactically he's one of the most switched on managers in the world, and it's always going to be tough there. So I think Spurs taking away a point is a very good result. Even before the game, like we kind of had our doubts, and like a lot of people were kind of tipping Spurs to finally end it. Like we all knew, like you said in the group chat yourself, Steve, like they never win at Stamford Bridge. But to get that point is very big, and I think all of the other big sides are going to struggle as well. Liverpool struggling against us every game since Tuchel came in as well. So
Spurs are going to be.
Games we played Southampton and Chelsea. So last season we drew with Southampton in that same fixture, and we lost against Chelsea. So already we have 4 points on the board this season that we didn't have last season.
Yeah, I think Spurs are definitely going to be the kind of the team. I wouldn't say probably the challenge for the title. I think obviously it might be a bit of step too far, but definitely dark horse for it. Like I said, all depends how they can still kick on. Like obviously we're going to talk about Liverpool later on stuttering as well. So if there is going to be a team to come out of the pack to challenge whoever's going to win the league, it probably could be Spurs, and I think it could be just down to that Conte mentality, like you were talking about. Romero is an absolute lunatic, but Stu has been sitting there quiet, and I want to get his opinion on the Chelsea and Spurs game as well. So, give us your opinion from an outside point of view, Stu. Chelsea and Spurs, the two teams. What you made of the game quickly as well, and where do you see these two teams going for the rest of the season?
I kind of like the guys really. I thought it was sloppy at the beginning. Chelsea came out of the blocks. I think Sterling's a very astute buy. And there were parts of the game that were quite mesmerising. It was a very strange game of football to really get your head around from a neutral point of view. I think from a fan of both sides, I'd imagine the stomach was churning for most of the game because it did ebb and flow a little bit. But as much as I like what Conte does, as much as I like what Spurs do, I think if you were to put the two teams together again, the calmness, as I'm afraid, was on the blue side of the pitch. Chelsea are a much more calmer side. They're a much more organised side. And you're absolutely right about the types of Richarlison running around like an 8-year-old chasing a football around. You know, you've got to be, sometimes you just got to take a breath, got to take a step back, and you've got to really kind of put your mark on the team by what you do with the football, not what you do off the ball. As much as off the ball is essential in any game of football, you've got to be a bit more confident on the ball. the lads were talking about Harry Kane didn't have a sniff. Lads, that's the mark of a great striker. You know, there are occasions in a match where you get one shot. If you get one chance, you've got to put that away. That's a mark of a great striker. Most people, and we'll talk about Haaland a bit later on, he had about 6 touches, didn't he? 7 touches all game and didn't really do much. Well, Harry Kane showed him what the difference between an elite level striker is by that one touch, that one goal. And things like that are really important. Now, whether that point tips you over above Chelsea at the end of the season or just tips you below Chelsea at the end of the season, we won't know. It'll be interesting to see once your 2 teams have warmed up into the season. I would imagine Guardiola's looking over his shoulder at yourselves, Arsenal, and Tottenham to an extent. Obviously what will happen with Liverpool. But look, sometimes you've got to doff your cap to 2 good teams and 2 solid teams. But, Anthony Taylor's ruined the game, really, I'm afraid. I'm sorry to be blunt, lads, but he's ruined the game. And you can't have that continuation of errors and the blatant errors. Really. Look, you can put gamesmanship into it, or you like. Both teams do it. All players put gamesmanship into it, but there are certain things you can't excuse. And I feel your pain, guys, really, from that. But from a Manchester United point of view, it's two very, very difficult teams just to get over. It pushes us down probably 6th, maybe 7th, really, on current form, if we can, bounce back. So I do like Tuchel. I think he's a great manager. I like Conte. It was great to see a bit of aggro at the end, not from a childish point of view, but it's really down to passion. And, I'd love to see that at Old Trafford. We're not seeing that at Old Trafford, so I would like to see it. But depending on what happens with the next 2 weeks, I agree with you guys. I think Sterling and Koulibaly, absolutely outstanding signings for you. I don't like Sterling as a person. He's a bit daunty by the way that he runs, but he's effective. He's an effective player. And I think Koulibaly is quite an effective defender. Yes, they didn't quite sort it out towards the end. I'm not quite sure what Mendy was doing. I'm not really quite sure what you were doing, on that corner, to be brutally honest. But going back to Spurs, they didn't quit. And you get a long way in football when you don't quit, irrespective of how many minutes are on the clock. You can play. You only play to the whistle. Spurs did that, and they got the result. So, was it a fair result? No, it wasn't a fair result. Let's be clear. But as a Tottenham fan, you take it all day long. So, plus, I thought it was going to be a draw anyway.
100%. I agree with you there, Stu. But to go from 2 solid teams to a team that's not very solid whatsoever. Let's talk a little bit about Manchester United.
Has he gone?
I think
Rach, Mark, Kane as well. A few of the guys there. Chow out.
Say the connection there is a bit.
Are we all right?
You are now, I think.
We have you back.
Are we back, guys? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, grand. Sorry about that, lads. So where was I? Yeah, talking about Manchester United. Few Manchester United fans in the chat there. But listen, Stu, where are we going to go with Manchester United? I don't want to talk about the board like we discussed earlier on. Let's just talk about the job that Erik Ten Hag has on his hands with that current crop of players, and what are they going to do over the next 2 weeks?
So, look, the interesting thing about football in general is it's common sense. There's nothing more easier about football than when you play common sense football. And unfortunately, we don't. When we get a hold of the ball, we don't quite know what to do with it. And look, I got into a lot of trouble with Brentford fans just recently. And my analogy of the game was, and I was a little bit annoyed and cranky after the game. We were doing a reaction show. And I just thought the way that they pressed us just reminded me of when I was coaching an under-8 side. And I wasn't actually being disrespectful, but, maybe I didn't articulate myself properly. But my point was that when you get right from the start, right from the kickoff, when you get a team that rushes you and does a real quick press, not a high press, but a quick press, and they don't give you any time, as a professional elite footballer, you've got to be able to deal with that. You've got to be able to deal with somebody rushing at you 100 miles an hour and then just pop it off to make him look an absolute tit. But we don't do that. I would imagine all of us on here play 5-a-side, 7-a-side. It happens in that game. The ball comes to you, somebody comes steaming in at you, and what do? You wait the last minute and you pop it off, and then you just wander away. That's what we don't do that. I don't, for the life of me, I cannot understand how an elite footballer can't understand that and get it dealt with quickly. The first 2 goals were comical. Let's be fair. They were both from short goal kicks, so to speak. Brentford pressed us. You can't argue with that. And then obviously the first goal, well, oh God, I said to Hay should have gone 12 months ago, but that doesn't really matter. The second goal, he's seen exactly when he's passing the ball into Eriksen. He knows, I can't remember the goal scorer now, he's going to be in on him like a flash. You just go long, don't you? You're 1-0 down. You just go long and you play yourself back into the game. So here's the overriding issue with us at the minute. We cannot control a game of football. We cannot play ourselves into a game of football. When players go hiding at Old Trafford, they don't know how to play themselves back into the game. Okay, so they won't play the simple stuff. They'll try and do or revert to type. So Bruno will try and do a 30-yard pass, or he'll go backwards. We don't attack with any kind of continuity. We don't attack with any fluency. We don't.
Who is that down to, those two? That's what I want to know. Who do you put that down to?
Yeah, well, it's a great question because I get it a lot, Evan. And there's 2 schools of thought. And most people will turn around and say, which your coaching and your managers. Well, where does player responsibility come into it? And I revert back to you guys on a Monday night or a Tuesday night or a Wednesday night when you're playing. You don't need to be told what to do with that football. You know what you're going to do with it when you get it. So if you're under the cosh, you've got to just take a step back, take a real deep breath, talk about it as your back 4, talk about it as the back 5 or your goalkeeper, and calm down. Don't panic. Calm down. Now, if you guys watched the game, we weren't calm at all in the first 45 minutes. We were just rushing around and we didn't know what to do. Now, I was accused of not understanding football because apparently the way that Brentford played us was a tactical masterclass. Well, I'm sorry, it wasn't a tactical masterclass. It was a way of playing football, right? Their third goal is a training ground corner. I get that, deep corner kick, Tony heads it back and Ben me out muscles Martinez. Their fourth goal was the only decent goal of the game. But yet, Luke Shaw was 10 yards off, wrong side of the eventual goal scorer. Now, there's 2 things you can do on that. A, you're begging your goalkeeper to come out and close him down and just narrow the angle as much as you can. And B, you grab him by the shoulder and you pull him back. So you're going to get sent off, but you're 3-0 down in a game of football. And sometimes, what I'm about to say is going to sound absolutely ridiculous. You can kind of regroup with 10 men and make a better game of it. Okay, because you've got to adjust your style of play immediately. You have to. Okay. But we don't do that. We haven't got the thought process. We don't have the intelligence to disrupt a game of football. We don't have the intelligence to take a foul or commit a foul at the right time. We don't have there is no footballing sense with us. And as much as it is down to the manager, Evan, he's not out there. You're out there. You're the one that can see what's going in front of you. You can scan the field. You play your own little segments. You get the ball in. You pass it out your segment, you move into another segment. That's how football is. It's all about segments. It's all about working with the players in and around you, and we don't do that. And when you look at the way that Chelsea's set up and the way that you are defensively, you've got somebody like Koulibaly who's constantly talking. He's constantly saying to Reece James, push up or come back. You've got Mendy and Koulibaly's here. You've got Jorginho or whoever. I can't remember who you had in midfield, so forgive me. But you've got those barking orders all the time. Sterling, I need you right on the touchline because I'm going to whip you a 10-yard ball in. Then I want you to attack the diagonal. These are communication patterns that happen. No, should happen on a football pitch. That isn't happening at Old Trafford. Now, whether or not they can't be bothered to play our team, I don't know. I haven't got the answer to that. But I know this, right? I played last night and you give everything. You give absolutely everything. I'm 52 years old and I'm still kicking the ball around because I absolutely love it. And I'm not going to stop until my knees give way. But I get on there and I give absolutely everything. Now, when I'm having a bad time with it, I get hold of the ball and I drop it off 2 yards. and I get it back and I drop it another 2 yards and I try and play my way back into the game, and we're just not doing it. That's the best way I can articulate it, lads. I mean, you guys might have a different opinion, but
It sounds like you should talk out for United still. Yeah, well, you might get a
sorry?
game for them, buddy. It sounds like you should talk out for United. You might get a game, buddy.
Yeah.
But come here, what I want to know is, well, one
one
quick question that I wanted to say to you, and I might actually go as well to the other boys about this as well, is that, like you said, you touched on something there about United being 3-0 down, and the game's over. I mean, it's well into the second half. Why did he bring on McTominay and not bring on a Donny van de Beek, a Garner? Like, you're 3-0 down. Why don't you give these lads a bit of experience, see what they can do in that situation? Like, Garner's going to come on and try and influence the game. You know what McTominay can do. You know what he can and can't do. Why aren't United, and why it seems to be a bit of a team? Because Ollie was doing it, Ralph was doing it, and now it looks like Ten Hag is starting to do it as well. Whereas I thought Ten Hag would have been that type of player to say, "No, Scott, we're 3-0 down. I know what you can do. Let's see what James Garner can do." And just, I don't understand. Maybe they're trying to keep him because they're looking to sell him on, which might be one of the reasons. Donny van de Beek, is he going to go anywhere? I mean, I think being 3-0 down away to Brentford is the perfect time to bring somebody like that on. What do you think, Stu?
No, look, you make a really good point. I raised a question on another show a couple of weeks ago, and my question was, McFred, so to speak, McTominay and Fred have been playing together now for 4 years. Where's the improvement? You're talking about two professional footballers that haven't improved, can't work together, can't play together, can't communicate. You know, I'm going to step forward 20 yards. Can you just hold? You know, I don't get it. So you're absolutely right. What I would have done, and I've gone on record as saying, I'd have had Martinez in at centre midfield. And it's got nothing to do with him going up against Tony, because Ivan Toney's come out and said that Martinez gave him a right problem. You know, it's got nothing to do with height. It's all about common sense. Now, Martinez is brilliant with the ball at his feet. You could have brought extra height in if you wanted to combat the likes of Tony and their front line. Also, with Martinez in there, because he's very mobile, he could have stopped the press. He could have disrupted the press. He likes to tackle. Bringing in somebody like Garner, who Mark will probably say, I'm absolutely perplexed that we're looking to move the guy on. Look, I advocated, lads, that Garner goes out to Brighton for 6 months, comes back in after the World Cup, because it'd be brilliant. He'd play down at Brighton, great manager under Graham Potter, and it'd be perfect for his development. He just needs that development. But for some reason, and we don't know, and me and Mark have spoken about this, we don't understand why Ten Hag is frightened to try something different. He's scared to try something different, and I don't quite understand it. So would
it be a case still? Would it be a case still that maybe he's putting McTominay in there to kind of say, "This is what I'm dealing with. I need help."
Well, there is that, but then if I'm Donny van de Beek, I'm getting my Copa Mundials and I'm chucking them at the back of Ten Hag's head. You know, what are you doing, mate? You know, because that's what I'm doing. Because you can't be quiet when you're sitting on the bench. You want to know why. We went on a football tour to Portugal 2 years ago, and I was dropped for the first game. Right, and I was fuming. I was absolutely livid. And I went to the boss and I said, "Why have you dropped me?" And he just said, "I want to try something different." So the team photo comes in, and I was that pissed off. I wouldn't take my sunglasses off because I was that fuming. I did it as a point, and I chucked my boots around and I started kicking water bottles, because you need that type of person. You need that type of aggression. You need that type of person and around you. Again, I'm sorry to refer to you lads playing football, but you want to look across at someone who's going to be there, and if you miss a tackle, he's going to be right behind you, smashing the player. You tell me a Manchester United player that does that. We don't have it. You do with Chelsea, or you do with Spurs. Steve, I've said, and Mark, I tell you, I'd have Houbier, or Houbier, however you pronounce him, at Old Trafford like that tomorrow. He's perfect for us.
He gets an awful lot of flack, even off a lot of Spurs fans as well, but I think it's because he doesn't do anything flashy.
Exactly.
He doesn't stand out. He breaks play up. He doesn't do any of these like crazy tackles or anything like that. He'll just stick in a leg and just be awkward. He'll get the ball and he'll just pass it.
So I'd have him at Old Trafford tomorrow. And those are the types of players that we need. So the players that we're now being linked with, a lot of our fan base are fuming about the Rabiot deal. He's a French international starter. You know, Deschamps trusts him. He's played for Juventus. He's played for, he will improve us. But I'm sorry, guys. I've monopolised it. I apologise, but I just had a lot to digest.
What I was wondering is one player just going to change the whole United team?
No, it won't. We need.
So how many players do you need?
But Mark, I'll let Mark have a little chat while he's in. So Mark has known, we've known this. Me as an Everton fan, Steve as a Spurs fan, Evan, Sean as Chelsea fans. We've known that Manchester United need a squad overhaul for the last 2.5, 3, 4 seasons. All right, it's not new news to anybody. So it shouldn't be new news to Ten Hag. It shouldn't be new news to the board, to the fans, to anybody else. So Mark, I'll come back to the kind of question I don't know if you heard earlier on. What can and what should and what do Manchester United need to do in the next 2 weeks of the transfer window? Because I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if Ten Hag walks.
Yeah, I said this today. Really, I really am at the end of my tether a little bit. I'm so frustrated with the situation, and as much as I love my club, I said today to everyone in the chat, if Ten Hag walks, fair play to him. If anyone else on this panel, were lied to, to promise things that haven't happened, completely overhauled all the time, and someone else making the decisions that overrule what you're saying in your job, how would you feel? And I think that's damning. And to be honest with you, I can't answer the question. For 10 years now, we've spoken about the same things. It could be the players, it could be the managers. We need the right men in to fit certain roles.
Well, we know it's definitely not the managers, because you've changed managers how many times?
Exactly, Evan. Exactly. Thank you. Somebody
how many, like your best manager after Fergie is Jose Mourinho. Like he's won you one title in 6-7 years. It's 100%. So it can't be the managers, because you've had some good managers.
He said his best achievement as a manager was finishing second with Manchester United.
He's absolutely right. And we can look back and criticise Mourinho for his negativity, the way that he treated players. They're all true, but he was and it still is a very good manager. He's been round the block. And I was more excited about him and wanted him actually to come in as soon as Fergie finished. And unfortunately, it didn't work out that way. But, as Stu's alluded to many, many times, the manager can only do so much. You coach the team into playing a particular way. And I think that's part of the problem at the moment, actually. I think he knows the enormity of the job. He's come in, so he has to stick to his philosophy, which might not work. Now, what you don't want, which Stu again said earlier, is for he to be that frightened that he doesn't tinker things here and there. He sticks to his rules, and yes, you bring the majority, you bring those things with you, but you stick to the ones that work. And I do worry that he's going to be almost stuck and not able to do that. That's one problem. But as Stu has also said many times before, the manager can only do a certain amount. As soon as those players cross that white line, you're on your own. You are professional footballers that know how to do a job. You know how to string passes together. You know how to do the basics right. And none of these players can do it. And I said to everyone today, and I mean this, and I don't want to sound bitter or anything like that, but I am really struggling to accept United as they are, and the more time goes on, the more I'm just falling out of love with them. And obviously I'm never not going to support them, but we've done it for so long, and it's so painful. It's really painful. And until people, and there's still a lot of people out there, fans, that don't understand the bigger picture, until people realise that it's everybody up here at board level and the owners that are creating this monstrosity that slowly filters down, there's going to be absolutely no change. You look at Inter Milan, AC Milan, and a few other clubs where they had owners that took over. the fans reacted and they were going. Now, I know you've got a lot of fans that do that, but everybody needs to get together and do the same thing, because I'm telling you, if they did that, it would push them out, and that is the only way we're going to get back now. You know, I've read things today about players rejecting us, and you know what? Then it's probably true. I don't believe a lot of shit. Sean would tell you I don't believe a lot of shit until it actually happens, but they're probably not wrong. You know, these players are. Would you, if you were, you know, eyed up by Manchester United, you know, still a big club, but see the performances they're given week in, week out, knowing that they read these headlines about the Glazers, about how things are run, you would never go there. And eventually that's gonna break. And I, honestly, the sooner the later, and until they go, unfortunately, it's painful and it's never going to change.
The last word on.
Quotes.
Say that again, Steve?
So one of my favorite quotes, anytime I've been on here and I spoke of United, I've always said my favorite thing about Fergie was that he was ruthless in getting rid of players when he knew he'd just gotten what he wanted out of them, and it didn't matter how good they were, how big a profile they were. Like, you look at Beckham, Stam, or Fergie realised, okay, I've gotten anything what I can get out of them. It's time to move them on, and I feel United haven't done that. I can definitely relate to a lot of the stuff Mark said there, because the end of the Poch era, and then we'll say with Nuno, like you forget he was a Spurs manager for any period of time, but the end of the Pochettino era, when we hadn't gotten the players that we probably should have had, we didn't sign anybody for 18 months. The squad was stale. We'd 7 players that were starting games in the 18-19 season that were there in like 15-16 or 14-15. But when you remember that interview, that famous quote from Jose, it was like his football heritage. But he said, like, when players leave a club, see like where they play and even if they play, you know, to tell you the level.
I love that quote. Yeah, I think I sent it into the group chat there the other day.
Because like it's perfect, because it shows, and like even like if you look at Nuno, for example, as a manager, like look where he is now. You know, and we, like, someone thought that he'd be good as a Spurs manager, but even Matt related was here with Delhi. You know, like Delhi went he's on his way to Besiktas on a loan now. You know,
yeah, he is, isn't he? Yeah.
Like
amazing.
Yeah,
seen that.
There's a lot of that there. I mean, like we had like people thought we were going to like get a fine wine out of like or fine tune out of Harry Winks and this kind of thing. You know, and it's Conte. It took Conte to come in to say, listen, he's shit, and just literally just cast him away. Like Lo Celso, Ndombele, Winks, and Reguilon have all been training away from the first team squad, didn't feature in pre-season. You know, whereas in Pochettino time, like players like that were all like just made to be part of the squad still, and then trying to bring them on to change a game. Like one of the biggest things for us on Sunday was that, as opposed to having Lucas Moura, Bergwijn and Harry Winks to come off the bench to try to change a game, we'd Bissouma, Richarlison and Ivan Perisic. Yeah. You know, like that's incredible, and that's the level that we need to be thinking that we want to be at.
Imagine if you'd made that a few years earlier, Steve. You know, you know, you must be. I would be a little bit resentful that it didn't happen a few years earlier. You know, you got to the Champions League semi-final. If you'd have picked up the pieces and made those changes then, you would be right in the driving seat now. And that is a little bit of a shame, but you're certainly doing the right things.
At that time, like that summer, you could argue that was we did quite big because we brought in Sessegnon and Lo Celso and Ndombele, and they were massive signings for us, but they were just terrible recruitment. But it's the 18 months prior to that where we didn't buy anybody because they're like, it's like as if like Levy looked at things and went, well, everything is fine now, so why would you like improve? Where it's like you just cannot rest on your laurels. It doesn't matter. Like if you're a player and you see at the end of a transfer window, nobody's been brought in as new blood to compete for your position. Well, you're just going to go, well, I mean, that's me in the squad, so you know, I'm happy. So like that's what really screwed Spurs was after when we came second in the league, and we then just like it's like as if we're second, well, that's fine. So let's just leave it as it is. And we didn't buy anybody for 18 months. You know, it was terrible. decision. And then it came around to the fact that at the end of the Pochettino era, we were stale, out of ideas. Same players were just kind of used to the same thing over and over. We didn't have anyone in that like this was Pochettino's ideals were new to them, that they would kind of come in and be passionate about it and then compete. And some other players might go, Jesus, if I don't kick it up a gear, I'm out of a place here, you know. And we didn't like shift any players. We loads of dead wood. We had like Lamela stuff would like had missed 2.5 seasons worth of games through injury and all this kind of thing that it was like as if we felt, well, we paid a lot of money for him at the time, so we got to hang on to him. Same with Sissoko, all that. And then like Conte came in and went, no, just move on, get rid of him. Paratici as our director is one of the best moves we made in years.
It's funny, Steve, because I was just about to say, sorry, somebody like Lamela would be a game changer for us in a minute. That's how far we've fallen as a club, that Lamela would make a difference to us.
But see, this is what I'm wondering. You've needed players for years and years, need a new squad, fresh blood in for years. You've had the managers to make them calls. Why hasn't it happened? Like,
my big thing on this, like with McTominay and that, is Fergie is different. Fergie earned the right to chop and change, get rid of whoever he wanted. With Conte now at Spurs, like when Poch left, Spurs were fairly content. I think they brought in Mourinho and that, but now they have the new stadium, so like they have a bigger pull, and Nuno didn't work out. So kind of Spurs were on, I think it was like their last attempt really to bring in Conte to change the way the club. Like Spurs haven't won anything in a long while, as you know, and I think it's their last gamble. So Conte has earned the right as well to chop and change who he wants. And with McTominay and like the likes of him, like we all know he's not good enough to start for Manchester United. But what I'm finding, like Rangnick, Ollie, and Ten Hag now are continuing to play these like players, and like my opinion on it is Ten Hag, like he doesn't have the players at the club right now to be able to cast McTominay and that out to play the football that he wants. But then, like you've seen with the last few managers, like the player power that is at United. When I look at Ten Hag now, McTominay, straight away I just find like Ten Hag is in survival mode, because when you don't have the players that you want to play that football, if he's not playing McTominay, if he's not playing certain players that are there at the moment, you guys know what some of the players at United are like, he's in trouble. These players, like they turn on these managers. Like it's happened to Chelsea before with Mourinho and that, and I just think that's what's happening with United. Like Ferguson years ago, like you said to me today as well, the thing with the Glazers is going on well before Fergie finished up. It's just he papered over the cracks, and he, like you said, he earned the right. They weren't going to sack Fergie with everything he'd done for the club, so he could do what he liked with the players. But the managers nowadays don't.
He did have that free reign, but if you think about it, you know, they took over in 2005. Name me any significant players that he was able to buy. He was priced out of so many because the Glazers still at that point weren't willing to spend that money. So he made do with the funds he was given, what he was allowed, and integrated into a team. And he was fortunately a master at implementing these teams.
The sad fact is, right, as you mentioned the Glazers, being realistic, they're not selling the club for another good few years, right? That means you're not going to get the players that you want. I don't care who you bring in, what manager you bring in, what signings you make in the years to come. United are going to be poor, and they're going to be poor for next, I'm going to say, 5 years at least. Managers aren't going to change. You've had Josie, had Van Gaal, now you have Ten Hag. Who's left? Who's left for you to bring in?
I think the only thing, Evan, I want to kind of wrap this whole United part of it up, because we've been going on United for about 25 minutes now. The only thing that Ten Hag can do at the moment, all right, is stabilise. It's the only thing he can do. Right, you're saying there's nothing he can do, but the only thing within his power that he can do is try and get the players at his disposal to play some form of football and stabilise the club. Because what I will say is, the talent at Manchester United's disposal should not be getting beaten 4-0 by Brentford. No matter what 11 players get put on the pitch, all right? You can say there's tactics, you can say this player, that player. Man for man, they're at a certain level that they should not be getting beaten 4-0 by Brentford. And Stu said earlier on, 3 goals and mistakes, and the 4th goal was the only good goal. So what you need to do is, you need to go back to basics and start preventing the mistakes, and then go forward. That's all we're going to say about Manchester United because my head is starting to hurt. Right, so listen, we're going to move on real quick. Okay, I want to kind of quickly touch on Liverpool. Kane texted me offside there. He said he can't wait for us all to slander Liverpool. So let's get stuck into it. In terms of the title race over the last few years, 1 point seems to be massive between Man City and Liverpool. I know it's very, very early days, but there's already a 4-point gap. Now, listen, Arsenal lost the first 3 games of the season last season, went on to nearly get into the Champions League. You can turn things around. But it's kind of the manner in the way Liverpool have played the first 2 opening games that I'm half worried about. Well, not half worried about, I don't really care, I'm an Everton fan. But 2-2 at Fulham, I think you can excuse the fact that it was away to Fulham, promote a team, places bouncing first game of the season. I think you can kind of half excuse that result. Liverpool weren't at their best. Last night, though, they didn't really have that bite you'd expect for them first game of the season back at Anfield. Darwin Núñez, that we're going to talk about as well, I want to say he should be ashamed of himself, maybe it's a bit harsh, but he needs to learn from that because first game in front of Anfield, Anderson making an absolute fool out of you for the whole 55 minutes or whatever it was. He needs to learn to deal with that because if he doesn't learn to deal with that straight away, he's going to be coming up against the likes of Tarkowski, Cody, experienced centre-halves all the way through the season who are just going to give him a little pinch in the arse and he's going to be sent off because he has to cope with that sort of stuff. What a hero. Yeah. Who wants to jump in first? Raise your hand who wants to jump in first. And basically, we'll try and have a bit of a... Get your few little digs in first, but then I want to kind of have a little bit of a constructive criticism about Liverpool because I do think... I think in the midfield area especially, they might struggle this season. So hands up, who wants to go first? Go on, Steve.
I'll let Steve go first.
Yeah, and then Evan jump in.
Like you just alluded to there with other defenders. Like I shared a thing on Twitter last night. I'd say like Christian Romero was probably watching like that Núñez and Anderson compilation. If you've seen it, where like Jacob Anderson was like actually rising him for like ages before that, and even like there was a part where like Núñez actually like swung at him and just missed him. So like what I was saying that like Christian Romero was probably sitting there like just with his like notepad and pen going on, you know. So like that, so that's a massive thing that Liverpool will have to manage now as well. And like who knows? I mean, like you get three games, but Premier League watch a run ago that was a headbutt, and they could give him more games.
And he actually tried to headbutt him before that, and that's the reason why Anderson went up to him.
That's why Anderson pushed him. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
So like it could be more games, and if anything, like the last thing Liverpool needed was that probably going into a game where like United are like a dog that's been starved for a while and finally sees a bit of meat in front of it. Like I think next week that could go anyway. Liverpool are finally, it seems, getting that kind of bad luck with injuries that everybody has said for the last 4 seasons or so. That I'm telling you now, Liverpool get injuries, and that's it. And they never got it.
I said this, and I said it in the group chat.
Yeah, I said it's actually so it's actually happening now. And
in fairness, hold on. In fairness, two years ago they did get riddled with injuries and they lost pretty much the whole spine of their team, and they managed to finish fourth, which is fairly incredible. I know, but still, you can say, they haven't had injuries. They haven't had injuries. They were riddled with injuries there 2 seasons ago. Let's be honest. Come on.
But what they don't have now, and haven't in the last couple of seasons, is the money for transfer windows for like multiple signings. It seems like they have scope for one big signing and one future signing. Seems to be their pattern. We get Carvalho this summer and Núñez. Like, but again, like Núñez is a massive chance. He's had one good season, you know. And I think, I don't know, is it just there'll be that little bit of nervousness in Liverpool now, with what's going on. And I think, like, if there was ever a game where Ten Hag would be able to fire those players up, it would be Liverpool.
Can you imagine Manchester United win that game Monday and go ahead of Liverpool after the start they've had?
That's what I said in the group chat today, when all the lads were doom and gloom about United. I said, lads, you're only 2 points behind Liverpool. You beat them Monday and you go ahead of them.
I think we could beat them.
Oh,
That's a bold statement, Stu.
Are you talking out, Stu? Are you talking out?
No, well, the thing is, funny things have happened in football, and Steve's right. We're like a wounded animal. I don't like that kind of phrase, but we are. But on a game of football, as soon as that whistle goes, something might just click on the night, whatever it is, and something might just click, and we might just go ahead and win the game 1-0 or 2-1. You just never know. But what I would say, and I'll be brief, what I would say is if I was Jurgen Klopp, my message to Liverpool is don't worry about it. Let's stay within 4-5 points of City. And then we know we've got the double header to turn it around. That's all I'll be saying to the lads. And once you've got that and you instill that, then, and because Liverpool have got the quality to do that, by the way, they've got the quality to stay on City's coattails by no more than 5 points. But then you know what you've got to do. You've got to beat them twice. To overtake them. So that's all I'd be saying if I was Liverpool. I can't see Klopp panicking, really. They're not playing particularly well. It's great for us. It does give us a chance on Monday because it's the game. That's if the game goes ahead, I suppose. It remains to be seen. But it is the game. Everybody's eyes will be on it. But I wouldn't be panicking too much if I was Klopp. That would be my message anyway. And actually, similar to what Ten Hag will be saying to the lads, don't worry about it. Kick on from Monday. So
yeah.
Sean, what do you make, Sean? Sorry, Evan, just a quick question there. I'll ask you about as well in relation to. I just want to touch on the Nunez. Like you said, I think Steve said it was going to be. It's a big chance, a big risk. I do think he has a bit of potential. You pay a lot of money for potential these days, especially we're going to chat about it in a second. Anthony Gordon potentially moving to Chelsea, and that's purely based on potential, that transfer, in my opinion anyway. But Sean and Evan, if you want to kick in on this one, from what you've seen of Nunez, bear in mind, forget about the Benfica days because I think anybody can look good in the Portuguese league, but from the Community Shield kind of onwards, what have you made of him so far in Liverpool shirt?
Before the transfer went through, I had my issues with Nunez. Similar to Lukaku, I just don't think he's a complete striker. Now, if there's one club that he will score goals with, it's probably Liverpool, because Chelsea get a lot of stick for this about giving it out wide, cross coming in, back out wide, cross coming in, can't break teams down. But I think Liverpool literally are the definition of just slump crosses into the box, whip balls across, and I think that's what he feeds on. So I think they could play to his strengths, but yeah, like so far I haven't been that impressed with him. But I think he will bang in a few goals for Liverpool. It's just the way they play may suit him. They're very direct, and he'll get on the end of things. But in terms of becoming an elite striker or becoming a top striker, I don't think he's ever going to get there, to be honest. I just think he's kind of like Lukaku. He'll be on that level, like below the likes of Kane, that even another level below that Lukaku is, where he can never give enough, or he's never going to get there. You can just see it. Like, I just don't think he's going to become that. But yeah, he'll get a few goals for Liverpool. That's my take on him. Yeah.
Literally took the words out of my mouth. Like he's overhyped. He's not, like I've seen there in the chat, comparing him to Andy Carroll. He'll get a few goals during the season. He's not going to get massive numbers. He's not going to be the talk of the town. He's not going to be top striker. Like, he'll get one or two, but he's overhyped. I think he's out of his depth in the Premier League, and I wouldn't be surprised seeing him heading off there in 2 or 3 years' time.
Do you know what it is, though, guys, as well? I think the problem with the Nunez transfer is that it came at the time alongside Haaland, Liverpool's number 9, Man City's number 9. I think everyone's kind of expecting both of those players to score 20, 25 goals. And I think when it comes to Haaland, he didn't score on the weekend for Man City, but it was kind of what he did off the ball. Like, the two centre-halves probably sticking to Haaland like glue, and that brings other players into it. And that's what you probably have to look at this thing. Like, Nunez and Haaland mightn't score 20, 25 goals, but they could bring into play, and Diaz could score 15 goals. Salah could score 26 goals this season. It's what they do off the ball. That's what Bobby Firmino does for Liverpool so well. He gets a lot of stick. Is he that good? But it's what he does off the ball and when he gets on the ball, that, and not necessarily when he scores the goals. That's just my opinion on it, and I feel dirty now giving Liverpool players a bit of compliments and stuff like that. But what I do want to chat about before we go, because we're just on the hour mark now as well, we're going to touch on the transfer window as well, because I wanted to get Evan and Sean's opinion on the upcoming rumour at the moment, because it kind of concerns me as well, is that Anthony Gordon could be moving to Chelsea for a rumoured fee of £50 million. Now, apparently a bid went in yesterday, 43. The bid went in today, 45. It's been rejected. Everton are holding out for 50 million apparently, and I think if they do bid 50 million, they will go. Now, in my opinion, and I'm just coming from the Everton side of it, is Everton are going to hold out for as much cash as possible. And see, people are saying, oh, if we give 25 million and Broja, he'll come, and if we give him 20 million and Gallagher, Everton need the money for an academy graduate to go against their books. So you can forget about Everton accepting the deal, unless it's literally like 35 million Ambrosia. That's the only way they're going to accept that deal. So what they're going to do is they're going to try and get as much money as possible out of Chelsea for an academy graduate, because that's 50 million pure profit. It's not like the Richarlison deal to Spurs, where yes, we're getting 60 million in for this year's books, but it's only 10 million profit at the end of it. So Evan, Sean, I want to touch base with you guys on this one. What do you think of this deal? And then I'll give you my opinion on Anthony Gordon if you want to ask me a few questions about him.
I think it's absolutely madness. Like, I think it's insane. Like, I know Everton are playing that. Like, they know we have the money. We have the money there in the back pocket, no hassle. And Chelsea will no hassle pay 50 million. Like, and that's what concerns me. Is like I know he has the youth on his side, and he's been balling lately. Like, but I think 50 million is insane. I think, like you said, swapping player for player and a bit of cash on the side. Like you said, Everton need that money more than anything. But I think, like saying Gallagher, I think Gallagher is worth 50 million alone, easy. Broja, you could add on a few with him, like, but I think 50 million for, like, he has youth on his side, and he's small bit promising. Like, I haven't seen too much clips of him, but like, I think 50 million is insane money.
I think Everton knew what they were doing, right? Everton gave him the number 10. They knew. I'm talking about in terms of actually with Gordon. They gave him the number 10 jersey 3 weeks ago. They've made him out to be this star boy. They put him on all the promotional, the new jerseys, everything, all the new videos and all that kind of stuff. Then all of a sudden they're opening to accept 50 million bid from. Now, in my opinion,
sounds like
Anthony Gordon
marketing to me.
Yeah, exactly. But listen.
It's a trap. It's a trap. I'm telling you.
It's an absolute trap, because they've seen that Chelsea have gone 43 million or 40 million for Cucurella. Okay, how much do you want? 63. There you go. And that's what they want. That's what they're trying to do. You have money to burn, but at the same time, 50 million on Anthony Gordon. It's mental. It's absolutely mental. Listen, I think Everton fans are so split down the middle with Anthony Gordon at the moment. Like, literally split down the middle. People are saying we should keep him, build a team around him. People are saying, listen, the only way we can build that team is if we actually sell Anthony Gordon. So everyone is so split down the middle of it. I think it's a case of...
If Chelsea came back and said, here's 50 million, Everton fans would be like, take it and fucking run.
Yeah.
Everton fans are saying that for 30 million.
Yeah,
if it's split down the middle, then I think that says enough for you. And I would take the money and run.
I'll just give you my 2 penneth on this.
Go on, Stu, yeah.
I think it's a mistake if he goes. I think, with all due respect to Chelsea, he'll just ruin his career. I don't know.
What I think as well, yeah.
He'll rot on the bench. He'll rot on the bench.
He will. If I was him, I'd stay another 2 years at Everton. I'd see where I progress to, and then if Chelsea come knocking again, that's when I would make the move. But he needs to be advised.
He thinks he is, or people think he is. He'll make it. You know?
Yeah. Well, no, that's right. But I think he needs to be advised properly on this one. I think it's a mistake if he goes.
Yeah, I think he's. According to reports, he's starting to believe his own hype, and his head's been turned. His head's been turned, and for a player who had one decent-ish season with Everton, the fact, now bear in mind, we were nearly relegated. So people were saying this young man saved us. Can you really say he saved us? You can nearly say he nearly dragged us down. Do you know what I mean? So, and the
for
fact
50
that
million,
for
a 50 million price tag, you're going to be expecting a lot from him, and he's not going to perform well. And he's going to end up being named as a flop if he doesn't perform to his 50 million price tag.
Yeah, if that's the case.
Listen, he could do it at Chelsea. You never know, but I don't think he's going to get in ahead of certain players that are there unless they get moved on.
He's not getting in ahead of Sterling, is it? He's not getting in ahead of Sterling. Havertz. He ain't going to get in ahead of those, surely.
No.
No, definitely not. Right, lads, I'm gonna go round. I'm gonna go round it now. We have 2 United fans, 1 Spurs fan, 2 Chelsea fans. Give me 1 player you want to get rid of and 1 player you want to get in. Mark, start with you before we go on to upcoming fixtures for this weekend to round off the podcast.
Yeah, quite simply, McTominay and Frankie de Jong.
So you want McTominay in and get rid of Frankie de Jong, is it?
Massive upgrade. Not what we need, but yeah, that would be my dream.
Yeah, Sean, what do you think? Anthony Gordon in, yeah.
Get rid of him already. He's not even in the door yet. Get
the
rid.
gates.
Probably end up rejecting him anyway.
Hey.
I don't know who I get rid of, to be honest. There's no one really. I think most of the like obviously Batchwine are going, but I wouldn't really count them as first teamers.
You still get like 25, 30 million for all these like players that like nobody remembers. Still
I
there
have-
for Chelsea. It's mad. Like,
I have a player
two
you
now.
need to get. I have a player you need to get
I have
rid of.
two.
Hudson Odoi.
See, I like what's on the line.
I really like
So
him.
do I.
Get rid of him.
I
Get rid of him.
like
He's
him.
not going to get a game for Chelsea.
I
Get
know
rid of
who I
him.
get rid of. Pulisic.
Fuck
Okay.
off, Sean. No way. I'm logging off. Don't touch my American hero. No
Right, Sean,
way.
who would you bring in, Sean?
Kind of torn because we need a centre back, we need a centre mid, and I'm just going to go for Fana because I think it's more pressing at the moment. And then centre mid after that doesn't matter. Might get De Jong as a backup, but
As a backup.
yeah.
Steve, what about Spurs? What about Spurs, Steve?
to get rid of, well, it looks like we've gotten rid of the 2 flops. We'd say like in Dombele and like Villarreal have taken Lo Celso on loan again. Dombele looks like it's a done deal on loan to Napoli. So like Harry Winks and Reguilon are left there. Like Harry Winks came from the academy, so like we've nothing really there. He's not on a huge wage. And Reguilon was 30 million. So I'd like, and I like the guy as well, like, you know, so I'd like to see him move on, but nothing concrete seems to be coming in at all for him. And signing wise, I'd like, we need a creative, we need a 10, and I'd love for us to test Leicester's metal with James Maddison.
Maybe start a bit of a bid more with Chelsea for Anthony Gordon. You never know.
I was going to say that, yeah.
Evan,
Have him.
Anthony Gordon at the Charleston time as well. And the rumour was that Everton wanted like 35 to 40 million from us. Or there was supposed to be something done or whatever with a double deal with him and Charleston, and I wasn't opposed to it at all. But I think like the boys said like 45, 50 million is just that little bit kind of bad right now in his career.
Yeah, Evan, go on, give us your 1 in, 1 out.
Right, well, I'm just going for a straight swap, so I am Frankie in all day, Frankie de Jong in, and I could either go with 2 players now, a bit controversial, either Kante or Jorginho. While they're still near that top level, they're on the decline. Like Kante's gone out for a month now, but he'd still do a serious number in, like say United or Spurs. Same with Jorginho. Jorginho, he's touch and go with me now. He's had his Euro moment, and he's had his fucking nominating Ballon d'Or, all that, but he's still having his little sloppy moments as we saw there against Spurs. So I wouldn't mind seeing him leave. Like he said, he'd still do a number with the likes of United or anything like that. So I'd just straight swap, like, and we had the likes of Gallagher back up then in midfield.
It's funny. I think he'd actually be exactly what United need. Now, obviously, United fans might not rate him, but like the style of player that he is, like he'll get on the ball in midfield for you. Like
Kante or Jorginho now?
Yeah, Jorginho. Sorry.
Yeah. I think he'd be well suited there.
But still, give us your 1 in, 1 out.
As I can't get rid of the whole squad, which is what I'd like to do, it'll have to be Dallo for me out. And there's only one player to bring in Brozovic. He would absolutely rip the Premier League a new one. He'd be fucking brilliant. Brozovic would absolutely brilliant for us.
Okay.
So that's what I would do.
Well, why 1 in, 1 out? I actually haven't a clue because literally an hour before we started this podcast, Everton were linked with Che Adams, Neil Maupay, linked with getting rid of Anthony Gordon. Everton transfer window over the next 2 weeks, if Gordon does go, is going to be wild. I can actually see us signing 4 or 5 players. Dele Alli going to Besiktas,
but
like
it
Steve
has
said
to be.
earlier on. It's
It
going to
can't
be.
be Shea Adams and Neil Maupay. Like,
But you know what? Listen. Everton just need. This year, Everton just need somebody to come in and score 8 to 12 goals. That's all they need. That's all they need, right?
Are them transfers relying on Gordon going?
I'd say Everton were relying on the Richarlison money going in and going, we'll give you 5 million up front and we'll pay 4 million over the next 3 seasons or whatever. If Gordon goes, they'll be able to just go in and go, there's your 15 million. I think that's the way they're planning on doing it. So I don't know, but I think Gordon's gone. Gordon's down in London and all. Apparently, he's taking pictures down in Harrods, so I think it's already done.
Don't say that to me.
Listen, I won't even get into my in and out. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna run through the fixtures really, really quickly. Touch on your guys' fixtures real quickly, and then we're gonna jump off because we're well over the hour mark now, and I'm gonna get shot. So first game up on the Saturday, Tottenham against Wolves. Then we have the 3 o'clock fixtures: Crystal Palace, Aston Villa. Big game for Everton against Nottingham Forest. Fulham against Brentford, which is going to be a decent game as well. Leicester against Southampton, which are my 2 teams who I think are going to struggle this season. And then the evening kickoff is Bournemouth at home to Arsenal, which is going to be an interesting game as well. Leeds against Chelsea, 2 o'clock kickoff on the Sunday. West Ham against Brighton is also 2 o'clock kickoff. And then Newcastle against Man City, which I can see being a decent game as well. And then obviously the big one, Manchester United against Liverpool on the Monday. Mark and Stu, give me your quick opinion on the Manchester United-Liverpool game on Monday night, and how do you think it's going to go?
I'll go first. I've gone in glass half full the last few times, and have been overconfident. So I think I'm going to be a bit more laboured, not be so confident we might get a miracle. I don't know. Obviously, Liverpool are probably not in the best frame of mind at the minute, and maybe they're there for the taking. I just
struggling with injuries and suspensions now.
Yeah, well, I don't think that really helps us. I think we're in such a shit position at the moment. It's very, very difficult. However, if we turn up with a little bit of confidence, the players, have the right training throughout the week, worked on the basics, we turn up and do the basics right, we might be able to get a result. But again, I don't want to be over optimistic, so we'll see. But I think if I'm being optimistic, 1-1, I'm going to say Monday.
I think
give us a prediction.
I think we'll scrape it 2-1. I do. I don't ask me why. I just do. Then again, to be fair, I thought we'd beat Brentford 2-1, and I got that.
I'm looking at a Salah hat-trick here, Stu.
Yes and no. I think Martinez will relish going up against Salah. I think it'd be perfect for him. He's going to play on the left. He's going to cut in on the right, isn't he, Salah? And I think Martinez is going to give Salah a bit of a problem. I really do. As good as Salah is when he's on his day, and I think I've heard Bobby Firmino isn't playing. Obviously, Jota's out. We've got a very slim chance, but yeah, I think we'll do it 2-1. If Martial,
I think that it's the perfect game. The perfect game for Manchester United to actually. It's the perfect game for Manchester United to have, because if they were coming up against somebody like, say they were coming up against somebody like Fulham, and Fulham turned them over, it could be really, really bad news. I'm not saying it's a free hit against Liverpool because it's Liverpool, but I do think that it's the perfect game. If you're not going to go for that game, you're not going to go for any game on Monday night under the lights, Old Trafford. So it's a big game for Manchester United, and it could, like you say, kickstart their season. Like if they win that game, they're point ahead of Liverpool after 3 games. I mean, that's bragging rights in itself. But gonna go to the Chelsea boys now before I go to Steve to round it off. Leeds away for Chelsea. Do you think the performance against Spurs is going to be enough to beat Leeds? Bearing in mind Leeds are on the same amount of points as well. Decent enough start to the season for them so far. Evan, go to you first.
Yeah, no hassle. I think if we get past that 10-minute sloppiness period that we had against Spurs, I think if we can overcome that and get stuck into it straight away, I can see it going 3-1. I think Leeds are an alright side. Rodrigo there, he's well able to nab a goal. I can see 3-1 coming towards Chelsea. I think the boys are well able for it. Like, I know we had a little period at the end of the Spurs game, but I think Tuchel can manage them back together, and I think that they can nab a handy win.
Well, man, Mark has just texted me there saying he needs to bounce. Mark, thanks so much for jumping in halfway there. Really, really appreciate it. And you can all follow Mark at Mark Beeks there and make sure you jump into it. Mark, have you any shows coming up before you go?
We've got a show tomorrow night. Keane is doing an interview on Glazonomics. It's a really interesting one again tomorrow night. Obviously, huge things coming out by Swiss Ramble today. Sort of breaking it down a little bit more. So, really good show tomorrow night. We should be doing a Devil's Advocate later in the week. I'm not doing any of these, by the way, but I'm just doing a little shameless plug. But nah, seriously, good to see you all, boys. Lovely to see a few of you back on, and great conversation. But I've got to go. I love you and leave you.
Happy days, man.
Thanks so much for coming on.
Mind yourself.
Man.
Well, I do.
So, Sean, just as Mark leaves the building there, Sean, your predictions for the Chelsea Leeds game on Saturday, is it? Sunday.
Sunday. Yeah, like I said earlier, I think we're going to win the next 5 or 6, but I think Leeds is the biggest test out of the next 5 or 6 games, purely because of the change of style. So I think with Bielsa gone, it's not as chaotic. So I think they'll be better defensively this year than they were. I think we'll scrape a 2 or 3-1. I was very confident until Kante got injured. Kava was obviously injured for the Spurs game, so just need to see what the midfield is like. But yeah, I think we'll scrape a 2-1 win.
I think Leeds will have enough firepower for Leeds. The only thing is Leeds do get that kind of extra gear when they're playing at home. They're kind of over the injuries. I know they've lost, like Bamford is constantly injured for them. I know they've lost big players in Calvin Phillips, but they didn't have Calvin Phillips for most of last season anyway. And Rafinha is obviously a big loss, but they seem to be picking up goals kind of.
I think this is the perfect time to give Gallagher a start. I think this is the perfect match to give him a start.
Could be, yeah. Especially with the 5 subs. If it's not working out after 45 minutes, you can take them off.
Straight off.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Especially with the subs. But listen, we're going to touch on the Spurs and Wolves game as well. First game of the weekend. Steve, how do you see that one going?
The early kickoff.
Ake, ruined.
So we've only beaten Wolves once in the last 5 with them. I was at one of those games. We lost 3-2 at home in March. Actually, the last Premier League game I went to before the lockdown. And that's the one show the clip came out of in Dombele, like jogging backward to try and stop like an effort from Neto. But look, I think like a completely different thing altogether now. I mean, like the one win in 5 that we do have against them was 2-0 away with Conte. So I think it was a strange one with Cody leaving them. Max Kilman is a deadly centre half as well, to be fair. I think we'll have enough about us to see him off though. But it's just that early kickoff on Saturday. It's just nobody else.
I know, yeah. But the fact that it's at home, I think it'll have enough. Like you say, if it was at Wolves, if it was at Molineux, I think it could be a different story.
Yeah,
those early kickoffs.
I think the one thing that like since Conte has come in, especially towards the tail end of last season and from the Southampton game, is that the atmosphere at home games now, as far as is brilliant. There's real buzz around the club in general, and I think the atmosphere, like it's kind of that'll lift any players on the pitch, and so that optimism might just see us through.
Good man. Okay, and listen, I won't keep you as long. Everton against Nottingham Forest. It's a must-win game for Everton. I think, not like I said earlier on in the podcast, Nottingham Forest were very lucky against West Ham. I think Everton at Goodison Park with hopefully a couple of new signings during this week. Onana looked a really, really good player for us when he came on against Aston Villa on the weekend. Yes, he did give the ball away, but what he did when he kicked off is he got the ball in midfield, ran past 4 players and forced an own goal. So that's the first time I've seen an Everton player do that since Ross Barkley played for Everton. And that's not even a joke. So if we can harness that, he's a unit. He's 6'3" or something. He's only 21 years of age. He's going to be massive for us. And if we can bring in a few more players over the next couple of days, I think Ghana coming back from PSG is happening over the next day or two as well. So with the injury, I think the Curry went off with a hamstring injury, so Onana could start and Ghana could come in off the bench as well. So I do see us having enough at home to beat Nottingham Forest. If we don't, then we're in a bit of trouble, and I think we need to go and spend that Gordon cash that comes in from Chelsea. So listen, lads, I'm going to leave it there. Thanks so much to everybody. Sean, Evan, Chelsea boys, Steve, the Spurs fan, and Stu and Mark, who came on, Manchester United fans. Bit of a packed panel there tonight. You've already shouted yourselves out where you can find each other on your Twitter handles and stuff like that. So we're going to leave it there. Thanks for everybody who came in on the comments. Thanks to everybody who liked and shared the stream. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And we will be back next week at some stage. We'll probably have a few lads on and we'll watch the Man United fume or delight. We'll have to just wait and see, I suppose. But thanks again, guys. And we'll see you next week.